Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Mem Aleph Amud Beis, 41b of Maseches Kiddushin. We are starting 4 lines from the bottom of the page. The Gemara has been discussing the idea of shlichus, of agency, of appointing someone to do something on your behalf, and it's as if you did it. And one of the areas where the Gemara looked for a source that shlichus, that agency works, was with regards to the shechting, the slaughtering of a carbon, one person on another person's behalf, and specifically it talked about the carbon Pesach. So the Gemara brought a source for the idea that one person could shecht on behalf of another person from the pasuk that said, "V'shachtu oso kol kahal adas Yisrael ben arbaim." The entire congregation should shecht it in the afternoon of the 14th of Nisan. So the Gemara said, well, does everybody shecht it? No, one person shechts on behalf of a group of people. So there might be multiple people shechting, but it's not everybody. So what does it mean that the entire congregation should shecht it? So from here we see that when somebody else does it on my behalf, it's as if I did it. Shlucho shel adam kamoso, my messenger is like me, that I can fulfill my mitzvah through an agent. So the Gemara says, 4 lines from the bottom, Hanicha l'Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. That's good, that makes sense, according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. He's the one who taught from that pasuk this idea. Elo l'Rabbi Yonasan, however, according to Rabbi Yonasan, Dimapik leila haikra l'drasha achrina, he uses this pasuk of V'shachtu oso kol kahal adas Yisrael, that the whole congregation should shecht it. That pasuk from which Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha learned the idea of shlichus, Rabbi Yonasan uses it for something else. So according to him, minalan, from where do we know that shlichus, that agency, works? By kachim, by the slaughtering of offerings. So how does he know it? Ditanya, because we're learning a brayso, where do we see that Rabbi Yonasan uses the pasuk, uses this verse for a different idea? Ditanya, because we're learning a brayso. Rabbi Yonasan Omer, Rabbi Yonasan says, Minayin shekol Yisrael kulan yotzim v'pesach echad, top of the next page. From where do we know that the entire congregation of Israel can be yotze, can fulfill their obligation with one carbon Pesach? Now, not everybody agrees to this, but this is Rabbi Yonasan's opinion. He says, really, he holds, now others hold that everybody has to eat from the carbon Pesach, at least a kazayis, an olive's worth. But he holds no. He says, how do we know, and he holds no because of this pasuk, as we'll see in a moment. He says, how do we know that actually not everybody has to eat from the carbon Pesach, that you don't have to eat a kazayis? How do we know that you can actually bring one carbon Pesach on behalf of the entire congregation of Israel? Shenemar, as the pasuk says, V'shachtu oso kol kahal adas Yisrael ben arbaim, that the entire congregation should shecht it, the carbon Pesach, in the afternoon of the 14th of Nisan. V'chi kol akal kulam shochtim. Does everybody shecht it? What does it mean that the entire congregation should shecht it? V'alo eno shochet ela echad. Only one person shechts it. So what does it mean that the entire congregation should shecht it? And again, it doesn't necessarily mean one. It could mean multiple people. For every group. But it's not everybody shechting. But he says, no, Elamikan, from here we learn, Shekol Yisrael Yotzim B'Pesach Echad, that everybody can fulfill their obligation with one single carbon Pesach, because that's what the pasuk seems to say. V'shachtu oso kol kahal adas Yisrael ben arbaim, the entire congregation should shecht it in the afternoon. Now, not everybody's shechting it, so what does that mean? So he understands that means actually that you could do just one. That obviously not everybody's doing it, so how many do you need? He says it sounds like you just need one, especially maybe because it says, oh, so it. So they should all shecht it. It sounds like one. So says Rabbi Yonasan, that we learn from here, Elomikan shekol Yisrael yotzim Pesach echad, that the entire congregation of Israel can fulfill their obligation of carbon Pesach with one single offering, even though that means that not everybody will be able to partake of the carbon Pesach. Now that being the case, that he holds that and he learns it from this verse, so shliach bekachim minale. So how do we know that an agent, a messenger, works in the context of kachim, of bringing offerings? Since he's using this pasuk not to teach you the idea of shlichus, of agency, but rather to teach you that everybody can fulfill the obligation with one offering. So how does he know that agency works? So the Gemara says, what do you mean? Minei. From here too. Like, think about it. If he's saying that you can bring just one offering on behalf of everybody, so that isn't that agency? Isn't that shlichus? So either way, he should be able to derive that shlichus, that agency works in the context of kadshim, of offerings. So the Gemara rejects that. It says, no, v'dilma shani hasam de'isle shutfus b'gavayu. Maybe the Karban Pesach is different because there's a partnership on the Karban Pesach, meaning everybody has a portion in this Karban. So maybe we see from here that when everybody's already partners on something, then one person can represent them. But how do we know that if we don't have a partnership on something, maybe I'm bringing an offering, you're going to shecht it for me, but you don't have anything to do with it. So how do we know that that would work? So, and what it sounds like is, now technically we should be able to ask the same question on Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, who also learned it from the Karban Pesach. But I suppose, Tosfos does ask the question, I think the simple reason might be because according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, that is what the pasuk is coming to teach you, that agency works. So since it's coming to teach you that, then it's easier to expand it out. But according to this opinion of Yonasan, it's not really what the pasuk is coming to teach you. The pasuk is coming to teach you that you can bring one on behalf of everyone, and that not everybody has to actually eat from it. That's very novel. And you want to say, and also you see that the agency works. Well, that's an additional teaching, and to that we say, well, maybe not. Maybe it's something unique here because everybody's already partners. So how does Rabbi Yonasan, at the end of the day, know that agency does work in the context of karbanos, of kadshim, beyond just Karban Pesach? Ela mehacha. So rather he learns it from the following. So this is actually also in the context of the Karban Pesach. This was in the Karban Pesach of Mitzrayim. And there it says, and they should take each person a sheep for the house, a sheep for the family, a sheep for the house. So there we have one person is taking on behalf of everybody else. So you see that one person can represent other people. So the Gemara says, but still, that's also Karban Pesach. V'dilma hasamnami de'islei shutvus b'gavayu. Again, maybe it works there because they have a partnership on this Karban. That's why one person can represent everyone in taking it on behalf of everybody else. Over there, that was in Egypt where there was the whole commandment with taking the blood and putting it on the doorpost, etc. So over there, certainly the taking was like a step in the bringing of the karban, the separating. I mean, all karbanos get designated, but there maybe it was more significant, and there we're saying that one person was representing everyone. It's shlichus, but still it's Karban Pesach, and everybody's a partner on it. So how do we know that in a case where you're not a partner on it, that someone can represent you? So the Gemara says, Imkain trei krai lamali. But still, it says it twice. It says it twice. And we have this idea that when we have something so superfluous, so extra, so we can say that it must not be teaching me something over here because we have a whole additional pasuk. I already know that one person can represent people on the Karban Pesach. That was the first time it said it. So why does it say it a second time? The reason why it has a whole additional pasuk repeating the same idea is to tell me that actually we should take this beyond just here. That which shlichus, that agency works, is not just in the Karban Pesach, like where the verse is found, because we have a whole extra verse. It must be coming to teach me that actually shlichus, agency, can work in other scenarios as well. So the Gemara says, no, we can't learn from there, because we have a different teaching from that pasuk. We need the pasuk in the context of the Karban Pesach in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, where it says, we need that for a different teaching, from the teaching of Rabbi Yitzchak. To Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, ish zoche, velo hakatan zoche. Rabbi Yitzchak derives from here that even though children are part of the Karban Pesach, but they can't be the ones to take it on behalf of everybody else. It has to be that a full-fledged adult, a halachic adult, is the one, a gadol, is the one who takes it on behalf of everybody else. So that's why it says, ish salabei savo salabais. That's to teach me that it has to be an ish, a man that takes it, and not a child. The Gemara says, no, we don't need it for that. Hahu me ish lefi achlo. There it also says, each man according to what he'll eat. And so there it says ish. Anyways, a man. So we can learn that it has to be a man who designates it from ish lefi achlo. That nafka. And when it says, v'yikchu lahem ish salavei savos, that a man will take it on behalf of the family, so we don't have to learn that it has to be a man and not a child, because that we can learn from ish lefi achlo. So why does it say a man will take it on behalf of the family? Or why does it have to say twice, really? The second time would be to teach me that he's a representative, he's a shliach, that you can be a shliach, you can be a agent, and since we have it twice, we say not just in the context of Karban Pesach, but even beyond in other areas of kadshim, of offerings. The Gemara says, but still, vakati mi bayile. We still need this pasuk. It's not extra to teach me agency, because it teaches me something else. Dishochting es ha-pesach al hayachid. It teaches me that you can actually shech the Karban Pesach for an individual. So there's a machlokas about this, but there's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that Rabbi Yehuda is going to be the other opinion. That when it says ish lefi achlo tachosu, that each man according to what he eats, so that actually teaches me that one person can bring a Karban Pesach for himself. You don't have to be part of a group. So if that's teaching me that, if ish lefi achlo is teaching me that, so ish, v'yikchu lahem ish salavei savos, when it says ish in the other place, that must be teaching me a man and not a child. And it can't be teaching me agency. So we have like a number of psukim here, right? We have that in one place it says that speaks to the congregation of Israel, and in this case on the 10th of Nisan, they should take a sheep. This is in Egypt. A sheep for each family, for each house. And then it says that if a family doesn't have it, the family can't do it on its own. The very next verse, actually, it says, so he and his neighbor together should do it. And then again it says, ish lefi achlo tachosu alaseh. It says that each man, according to what he can eat, should be, I guess, like covered by this offering. So we have those words, ish lefi achlo. What is ish lefi achlo? Each man according to what he eats. So what is that teaching me? So we suggested maybe that's teaching me that it has to be a man who separates it and not a child. But now we're saying no. That's teaching me that one person can do it on his own. Ish lefi achlo. A man according to what he eats, he could do it by himself. And if that's teaching me that, then when it says v'yikchu lahem ish salavei savos, that a man should take a sheep for his family, so that has to now be teaching me a man and not a child, and we can't use that to teach me agency. So how does Rabbi Yonasan know that you can appoint an agent for Kiddushin? So the Gemara actually says, nah, don't worry about it. Savar lo command Amr, he holds like the opinion, Ein shochting es ha-pesach al yachid. Rabbi Yonasan must hold like Rabbi Yehuda, who says that actually you cannot shecht a Karban Pesach just for one person. Rabbi Yehuda, Rashi explains, learns it from a pasuk that says, Lo suchal izbalach es ha-pesach, that you cannot shecht the Pesach in a certain context, but that he says that means an individual can't do it on his own. So, if he holds that an individual cannot shech the Karban Pesach, so then when it says, Ish lefiacho, each man according to what he eats, is not teaching me that an individual could, because he holds that an individual can't. Then it must be teaching me, Ish lefiacho, a man separates it, and not a child. And if I already know that a man and not a child from that pasuk, so that leaves the other pasuk still open when it says that V'kruam ish salavei savo salavei, that a man should take a sheep for his family, for his household. So that's extra now to teach me that he takes it on everybody's behalf, and we can learn the idea of shlichus, of agency, from there. Okay. Says the Gemara, but we have another source, seemingly, for shlichus, and we have to deal with that. So the Gemara says, Ve'ela, but Hada Amar Rav Gidol Amar Rav, that which Rav Gidol said in the name of Rav, Minayin sheshlucho shel Adam kamo. So how do we know that the shliach of a person is like himself? Shenemar, as the verse says, V'nasi echad mimateh. It says that when it came to dividing up the land of Israel, while the Jews were still in the desert, so a nasi, a prince of each tribe, would go and represent the rest of the tribe in drawing the lots to determine everybody's portion that they would get when they enter the land of Israel. So, so the Gemara says that that's the source for shlichus, for agency. There we have one person going and representing everybody else in the division of the land. So seemingly, in that case, he's an agent. So ask the Gemara, why does Rav have to learn it shlichus? From there, tepaglei shlichus mehacha. Let him learn shlichus from over here. Meaning, I guess, from one of our other sources, from Kiddushin, from Karban Pesach. So why does he have to learn? Why does he have to learn that shlichus works from the fact that you had a representative go from each tribe to draw the lots to decide what portion everybody would get? Why not learn it from one of our other sources? I guess Kiddushin, Karban Pesach, one of the things that we've already suggested. So the Gemara says that, the truth is, it's not really shlichus over there. Anyways, it's not real shlichus. It's v'tizbara, and if you look at it carefully, da shlichusu. Is this really shlichus when the prince of the tribe goes to represent everybody? Is that really agency? V'haktarim la b'nei shlichus nenu. He's also representing children, because children will get a portion of the land also, and so. A child can't appoint a shliach, an agent. So whatever he's doing, it's not shlichus, it's not agency. Ela ki hada Rabba bar Rav Huna. Rather, we understand what's going on there when the nasi, the prince, goes to represent the tribe in the division of the land. We understand what's going on there based on the teaching of Rabba bar Rav Huna. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna, Amar Rav Gidol, Amar Rav. So they say in the name of Rav Gidol, in the name of Rav, a different teaching. So it's the same Rav Gidol, Amar Rav, but suggesting actually we learned something else from this case of the nasi representing the tribe, because it's not shlichus over there. It's not agency. So what is it? The following: Minayin shezachin la'adam shelo b'fanav. How do we know that you can be zochen? You can acquire something if it's to somebody's benefit on their behalf, even shelo b'fanav, even if they're not there or without their knowledge. Shenemar. So we learn it from here. V'nasi echad, nasi echad, that that we had somebody go and represent everybody in acquiring the land, and so we see Zachin Adam Shalom B'fanav, you're allowed to represent, you're allowed to acquire on behalf of others, even if they're not there. So the Gemara says, V'tizbara, but wait a second, Zechusi? Who says that that's a merit for them, acquiring a piece of land for them? It could also be, actually, to their detriment. Why? Because a person might prefer to live on a hill or a mountain. He doesn't want a valley. And the Nasi goes and represents him, and what portion does he draw for him? A valley. And somebody might prefer a valley, and he doesn't want a hill, and the Nasi goes and gets him a hill. It doesn't have the choice really, but you can't say it's Zachin Adam Shalom B'fanav that we're acquiring something to somebody's benefit on their behalf, because it's not necessarily to their benefit. It may be something that they don't want. They'd rather something else. So rather, that must not be what Rav Gidal was teaching the name of Rav from this verse. It's not the idea of Zachin Adam Shalom B'fanav, that you can acquire for somebody to their benefit, even if they're not there, because it's not necessarily to their benefit in that case. Ve'ela Kiderava bar Rav Huna. Rather, it's Rava bar Rav Huna's version of Rav Gidal in the name of Rav. To Amar Rava bar Rav Huna, Amar Rav Gidal, Amar Rav, because he said in the name of Rav Gidal, in the name of Rav, Minayin liyisomim sheba'u lachlok b'nichsei avyin, shebeisting ma'amidim la'em apatrapos, ulachov ulazakos. How do we know that when yisomim, when orphans, they come to divide up the portion of their father, so Beis Din will appoint an apotropos, a steward. So usually the case would be where there are children who are old enough, they're past bar mitzvah, they have their own intellect, they have das to acquire, and meaning if all the children are below bar mitzvah, they're all young, so then we wait till they get older to divide up the inheritance, I believe. But where some are older and some are younger, so then the older ones might want to get their portion. They could wait, but they want to divide it up now. So they say, let's divide it up now. So who's going to represent the younger children? So the Beis Din, the court, appoints a steward, an apotropos it's called, to represent them. Now how do we know, says Rav Gidal in the name of Rav, that when the orphans, the children, again here it means their father died, that come to divide up the land of their father, the property of their father, that the Beis Din can appoint an apotropos, a steward, both to obligate them and also to bring them merit. So the Gemara says, what do you mean, lachov? Amai, what do you mean to obligate them, to make them lose out? What does that mean? What it means really is that he can bring something to their detriment if his intention is for their benefit. In other words, how do we know that Beis Din can appoint someone to represent them as best as he could? And sometimes he'll lose he's going to represent their position of what they should get, but he's not necessarily going to win all the arguments. So there could, in a certain sense, be something to their detriment here, because they may not end up getting what they want or what's in their best interest in the division. But Beis Din, the court will appoint someone to try his best on their behalf. But how do we know that we could do that? Maybe we just have to wait till they get older so that they can represent themselves. How can we appoint someone that might end up costing them? So the Gemara says we actually learn it from here. Talmud Lomar, v'nasiyacha nasiyacha nimatati kachu. We actually learn it from over here, where Nasi, a prince, was appointed to represent his tribe. And like we said, not everybody's going to get what they want. Some people will get a mountain when they want a valley. Some will get a valley when they want a mountain. Not everyone's going to get what they want, but he's going to do his best. Now there, I think it was a lot anyways, but the idea is he's going to represent them and trying to bring about the best result for them. And, but you get what you get. So there, even though it could be to someone's detriment, but we can appoint someone to represent them. That's the Nasi. The Nasi goes and represented them in the division of the land of Israel. So we learn from there that the Beis Din, the court, could appoint a steward or apotropos to represent the younger children, even if it's possible that he'll lose some of the arguments and he won't get them exactly what is best for them, but he's going to try, and we can do that. So that is, in the end, what we learn from the idea of the Nasi being appointed on behalf of the tribe is just that he's appointed and you don't always win, and you get what you get. And we can apply that in other scenarios as well. But it has nothing to do with shlichus, it has nothing to do with agency, which was really our goal. Originally, the Gemara had a version of Rav Gidon, the name of Rav, that actually learned shlichus, learned agency from here. And the Gemara said, well, if you can, why learn it from here? Why not learn it from somewhere else? Or why, if we can learn it from here, why do we need those other places? Whichever way you want to ask it, but in the end, we say it's not shlichus, it's not agency. You can't be an agent for a child. Your child can't appoint an official agent to represent him. You could be a steward. That's different. He's not in their. He's just working on their behalf, but not in their stead. So that can work, and whatever happens, happens. Okay, the Gemara now actually elaborates on this idea of having an apotropos, a steward, to represent the Yisomim, the children. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel. Rav Nachman said in the name of Shmuel, Yisomim. The Gra here adds in the words Gidolim Uktanim. If you have Yisomim, you have orphans, their father died, and there's older kids and there are younger kids. And the older kids want to divide up the land. Shebo Lachuk B'nichsei Avim. They want to divide up their father's portion. Beis Din Mamidim Lahem Apotropos. The Beis Din appoints an apotropos, a steward, on behalf of the younger children who are still minors. And the stewards will try to choose a good portion on behalf of the minors. And when they get older, the minors, they can protest and say, actually, do-over. We don't like what we got. We're going to have a do-over in the division. That's the first opinion. So this is what Rav Nachman said in the name of Shmuel, that they are allowed to protest for Rav Nachman Didei. Rav Nachman himself said, when they get older, they're not allowed to protest. Whatever happened, happened, and too bad on them. If they don't like it, too bad. Why? He says, if they were allowed to protest, then what power have we given to Beis Din? We have, Beis Din, the court here appointed someone on their behalf, and this is what he chose. So if we could just walk it back, that doesn't make Beis Din look very good. Look, it doesn't. It makes the court look like their decisions are not binding and temporary. But we want the court has to have power. The Beis Din has to have power. So Rav Nachman says they are not allowed to protest. Whatever was determined at the time, that's what remains. The Gemara asks, Umi Islay Rav Nachman, does Rav Nachman hold of this idea of Im Kein Ma'koach Beis Din Yafeh? Does Rav Nachman hold of this logic where we say that we can't take something back because otherwise what power are we really giving to Beis Din? It diminishes Beis Din's power? That's not what we learned in a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Shuma Dayanim. Let's say you have a borrower and a lender, so we'll call him a creditor, and he's coming to collect from the guy who borrowed money from him. He doesn't. The guy doesn't pay back, or he doesn't have any money to pay back. So at some point, Beis Din will go and confiscate the borrower's possessions and sell them, and use that money to pay back the creditor. So the Mishnah says, Shuma Dayarim, the evaluation of the judges in terms of the value, Shepichsu Shtus. Let's say they undervalued something by a sixth. Oh, Sir Shtus, meaning by more than a sixth. Or they overvalued something by more than a sixth. Machran Batal. When they sell it, that's Batal. That is nullified. Because they totally missed. If they were more than a sixth off, so then that's too much to be off, and that sale, again, they confiscated items to sell, to pay back the creditor, but that's nullified. Rav Moshe ben Gamliel Omer, Machran Kayam. Moshe ben Gamliel says, no, the sale stands. Why? Because in King Makoch Beis Din Yafeh. Because otherwise, what power are we giving to Beis Din? Beis Din, we have to give the Beis Din, the court, the power that what they say goes, and even if they're 1/6 off, their decision stands. Ve'amar Rav Huna bar Chinina, Amar Rav Nachman. Rav Huna bar Chinina said in the name of Rav Nachman, Halacha kedivrei chachamim. He ruled like the first opinion, that actually we nullify what Beis Din did in this case. And we don't say Im Kein Makoach Beis Din Yafa, that if we nullify what they did, what power are we giving to Beis Din? Rav Nachman says we don't paskin that way, we rule like the first opinion, the opinion of the Chachamim, that we can nullify what Beis Din did. So we seem to have a contradiction in Rav Nachman, because here, in the second case, he's pasking like the Chachamim, that we don't say Im Kein Makoach Beis Din Yafa, we're allowed to nullify what Beis Din did. As opposed to in the case where they appointed an apotropos, a steward, and when the kids grew up, they didn't like the land, Rav Nachman said they can't protest, because Im Kein Makoach Beis Din Yafa, otherwise what power are you giving to Beis Din? Beis Din appointed someone, and the decision is final. So which one is it? Does Rav Nachman hold that we have to say the power of Beis Din is the power of Beis Din, we can't walk back, we can't negate their decisions, or do we say that we could? So the Gemara says, Lo kasha, it's not a contradiction. Top of the next page, it says, Hadato, hadaloto. In one case, Beis Din made an error. In the other case, they didn't make an error. In the case of where they evaluated an object, they got it wrong. They were over 1/6 off. That's too much to be off. That's an error. In the case where they make an error, so Rav Nachman says it's nullified. He paskin like the Chachamim, that their sale is batal, it's nullified, and we don't worry about, but what about their power, etc. But in the case where they appointing an apotropos, they appointed a steward. He was representing the Beis Din in the court to represent the children. And when the kids grew up, they didn't like what he did. But it's not like he made a mistake. They just didn't like it in the end. So there we say, no, Beis Din appointing him, and we can't, this is like the decision of the court, and we can't just negate that decision, because otherwise what power does Beis Din have? There, Rav Nachman says this idea of Im Kein Makoach Beis Din Yafa. So the Gemara asks, Ida lo to. So if the case is where the steward, the apotropos, didn't make a mistake, Mayecholim limchos. According to Shmuel, Rav Nachman said in the name of Shmuel that they are allowed to protest. Rav Nachman himself said no, they can't protest, because otherwise what power does Beis Din have? But Shmuel holds that when the children grow up, if they don't like what the steward did, they could protest. But if he didn't make a mistake, then what grounds do they have to protest? What are they going to say? So the Gemara says, Yecholim limchos beruchos. They can be mocha, they can protest the directions, meaning the location, meaning if they have, let's say, Rashi says they inherited other property, let's say from their mother, and it happens to be near a certain field that they didn't get, they own a field over here, and there's a field that they could have inherited over here, but instead the steward chose this one. Now he didn't make a mistake. It could be even that they hadn't yet inherited this field. He didn't make a mistake, but they really want two fields that are adjacent to each other. That's much easier on the tractors, right? So, on the horses. So in that case, that's where Shmuel says that they're allowed to protest, and say, this wasn't our decision. We want the one that's next to our other field. However, Rav Nachman still maintains, no, whatever Beis Din did, we have to keep, because otherwise, Makoach Beis Din Yafa, what is the power that Beis Din has? They didn't make a mistake, we can't negate their decision. Okay, we will stop here. We're going to take a couple weeks off, and God willing, we will resume at the beginning of Elul, which is going to be the week of August 28th, I believe. Okay, have a great summer.